What if I did normal YouTube intros? Hey everyone, smash that like button! Not gonna happen. Alright, I have a project that has been stewing for probably over 6 months. I'm gonna do it finally. I look like Mirabelle. We're gonna revisit macrame, we're gonna revisit macrame lamps because yes, and we're gonna revisit hot air balloons. I have done a macrame lamp, I've done a macrame hot air balloon. We're going to mash them together and create a macrame hot air balloon lamp. I was actually watching a YouTube video from Jessica Kellgren-Fozard. Yeah, they were doing a tour of their nursery that dates how long ago I got this idea, and they said they had been looking for a hot air balloon lamp to put in their nursery and they couldn't find one anywhere, and I was like, what? Nobody's made a hot air balloon lamp? How is that even possible? That would be adorable. And instantly, because that was like the peak of my interest in macrame time, I was like, ooh, I could macrame one. I spent several months sort of mulling over the idea in my head. I have an idea now of how this is gonna work. It really feels like it should work. So all that remains is for me to actually try it and find out a lot of it isn't gonna work and I have to come up with new ideas. First things first, let's go gather up all of the random supplies that I've been slowly procuring over the last several months and stashing wherever I could find a space. Let's go! I'm back. It's actually not that many supplies. I have these metal rings I was finally able to find after searching all over the place. I could only find much bigger ones, and I really wanted the top and bottom of this balloon to be a solid metal ring because that's where most of the stability is gonna come from. Next up, I also got some craft wire. This is 12 gauge or gauge, I think it's gauge, which is pretty thick but still pretty pliable as well. I really debated on the size here, and this may end up coming back to bite me because I need something that I can easily bend into the right shape, but it also has to be strong enough to hold that shape with all the weight of the cord on it. Then of course I have cord. My thought is maybe just do the whole balloon in white and the basket in brown. This may not be enough white cord. This may not be enough. No, this should be enough brown cord. Then I have this lovely cord. Remember last time I was making a lamp and I found like a lamp kit finally and had to put it together on my own, and it turned out that it was for a standing bottle lamp. It worked in the end, but like it caused some problems. This time I just looked up hanging lamp kit and found this. It has the actual like switchy switch thing on the cord instead of on the lamp itself, because my other lamp I have to stand up on the chair to turn on and off all the time because it's the wrong kind of cord. I have scissors for cutting all of the cord and teeny tiny wire cutters and needle nose pliers and stuff. Why are my wire cutting supplies this tiny? Because I bought a super cheap multi-pack because I am a cheapskate. Have you seen what big normal sized ones cost? I guess it's not that bad overall, but I'm only doing one project here. I don't know if I'll ever need these again. So it kind of seemed too much. And that's that. Bleh. That's that. I don't know if that was really country or if I just said the wrong word. This shouldn't be. No, it's gonna be a pretty hard project. I don't have everything worked out perfectly in my brain. I have like a loose overview of how it should work. There she blows. Basically, you've got a ring on top, a ring on the bottom, and the wire making the little like sections of the balloon. And then there is string attaching a little square basket that I will also make out of the wire. That's about it. Pretty simple in concept. Not so sure it's going to be that simple in execution. So that is the top of the balloon, and the light is coming through like so. I think I should make the frame first and then worry about hanging it. This is always the hardest part of the project, like figuring out how the crap to start, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just gonna go for it. Yeah, okay, there's really no easy way to do this. Is that ridiculous? I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, well, that's gonna be a problem. This is going great. All right, we've got 2. We're gonna need a lot more than 2. Welcome to the super unprecise world of crafting with Charlie. So far, it is looking like a very, very sad blimp. I can confirm that using teeny tiny wire cutters on not so teeny tiny wire is not pleasant on your hands. That is with 10 spokes, or whatever you want to call them. Ow! This lamp is currently not safe for children. So this is probably gonna take me like an hour to even out and shape properly, and I'm not gonna bore you with the details, so let's skip ahead. I'm gonna talk quietly because the door is open and that's awkward. It definitely still needs adjusting, but considering there's really nothing to go off of here, I'm literally just staring at wires in the air, and my eyes are so bad that I can barely see them sometimes. It looks better than I expected, quite frankly. These are a little distracting in the center, but without those, it's not too bad. It's gonna look much better once I get macrame in there. That'll help to even out all of the separate sections by doing the exact same number of cords, the exact same number of knots, all the way down. It should be able to keep them all the same size. I might try to just whip up the basket. I probably won't attach it yet, but I do want to see if I have enough wire left, because this is all the wire that I have left. So I think I'm gonna try to do that tonight, but other than that, we're gonna quit for the night. The dark really helps. You could barely see this thing at all, and now it's like, bam, there it is. So helpful. All right, so I've done a bit of work on this today, and by a bit, I mean a very small bit. What I decided to do was take one long piece of cord and do basically repetitive lark's head. It did mostly cover the wires. You can still see some wires poking through, but it is getting a second layer of cord on top of it because there's going to be all the cords that are going down here. So I think it should fully cover the wire in the end. I also was able to use that as a way to hold down the ends of all of these cords. So I do feel like that made everything really secure. This also helped me space out the wires because I did 6 lark's head knots in between the 2 wires. The next step is going to be adding on the actual cord to go across these panels. My basic plan is square knots. I think I'm gonna start with 8 cords on top and then start with 2 square knots. And as I make the square knots, I think I'll wrap the cord around these side wires so that it stays spread out. I also ordered 2 more spools of this because I was laying in bed last night thinking about how much I had left and decided it was very likely that I was gonna run out of cord. And now I'm really just stalling because I'm afraid I'm gonna mess this up. Okay, so what I'm immediately realizing here is that if the wire was showing before, it's kind of still showing. Whoops. Y'all, it's working. Hello. The fly by the seat of your pants method is working. Fingers crossed that this just keeps on going great. I ended up putting 5 cables in each section, which fills it up pretty nicely and covered up any leftover metal bits up there. So what I realized is that I had to do every other segment because what I'm doing right here, I can't replicate that in this segment. I can't wrap that around these side wires the same way. Now I have to figure out what's going in the open segments here. It needs to directly pull against these 2 sides and pull everything in to exactly the right width. Enough talking, we move on. Good morning. I can't even remember when I last updated on this. Hi. I've been working on it very, very slowly, partially because Matt and I have both been a little under the weather in the last few days, mostly because it isn't going how I wanted it to, and when projects aren't going how I want them to, I become a master of procrastination. It's like maybe if I ignore it long enough, it'll magically fix itself or disappear. So I ran into one major problem with this idea. As I've mentioned before, I don't really have a head for math, and that extends to like science and physics. So sometimes I think that this is how something will work, and reality is like, no, that's not how stuff works. It's fine. We all have our own strengths. Basically, I was imagining that as I added macrame to the panels, especially as I filled in the last panel, it would pull all of the wire frames against each other and hold it out and nice and round in the shape that I originally had it. I'm here to tell you, reality disagreed with that idea. The cord doesn't pull the wire frame outward, but rather towards the path of least resistance, which is downward. So the balloon just kept elongating more and more as I added more macrame. Then as I tied the macrame onto the panels, I was tying them to this smaller size without realizing that they had shrunk so much. So when I finally got to the point that I realized what was happening, it was also past the point of return unless I undid all of the macrame, which I'm not gonna do that. I had really reached the phone it in part of this project. I didn't even want to finish it anymore when Matt, who does have a head for physics and such, glanced over and was like, hey, you know, if you run cords up the center of the balloon from the bottom hoop to the top hoop and pull them nice and tight, then you'll force the 2 hoops to stay at a certain distance from each other and therefore get that nice round shape that you want. And y'all, I had thought so long and so hard on how to fix this problem, and that thought had never occurred to me in the slightest, even once. By this point, of course, it was really too far to fix the problem because there's not enough length in the cords to allow this to go back out to its full shape. But I went ahead and ran 4 cords up the center anyway, just to try it out and see if it fixed anything. And it did take the balloon from like, this isn't even worth finishing, to like, okay, it's fine. Cause yeah, it looked worse than this. Yeah, so a lot of lessons learned here already. If I do this again, or if you would ever like to do this at home, number 1, I would recommend using a much stiffer wire than this, something that's not so pliable like the wire of a wire hanger, and then forming all of the spokes, I guess you could call them, and making sure that they're all exactly the same before adding them onto the rings. And then on top of that, I would recommend also using that brilliant suggestion and running cords up the center so that it's held at a very specific height and nothing can elongate with the weight that you put on it and with how tightly you tie the macrame as you go. We live and learn. Anyway, let me tell you some things I do enjoy about this so far. First up, I really do like how the macrame looks on here. I enjoy the amount of holiness that it is and how the pattern looks. I'm also really pleased with how well I was able to incorporate some new cords on here, because like cutting the right length of cord, running out of cord, and having to add new cord onto the design is basically like the trifecta of problems when it comes to me and macrame. And I didn't cut the right length of cord for a lot of these, but I was able to work in new pieces of cord, and it's really hard to see. It doesn't stand out at all, and it was really easy to do. So that's a step in a good direction. Also, you guys, if you do macrame, you need to get one of these needles. This is like a plastic tapestry needle, I guess. I got it when I was making my needle lace rug because the yarn that I was using was super bulky. Turns out macrame cord will also go through the eye of this needle, and this is so much easier, worlds easier, to just thread this needle and use this to get through small spaces or to weave cord up underneath other cord, instead of trying to use a crochet hook to like go through and pull it onto the other side. I hated doing that, and I always ended up shredding my cord in half because the crochet hook wasn't big enough to grab all of it. This is a lifesaver. So when I finished it off here, I wrapped all of the cords around the bottom hoop, and then I did just one row of a diagonal half hitch just to give it a sort of a clean look on the bottom, and then trimmed everything off. So I need to attach the basket to the bottom of this, and then I'll use the brown macrame to cover the sides and the bottom of the basket, and we'll see how that goes. Well, at 11 o'clock last night, I finished it. Let's just call it a prototype, yeah? The concept is there, and the concept I love. The execution is just a little iffy. Honestly, I was really pleased with how the basket turned out. I did some kind of weird wrapping of cord down the sidebars, which kind of gave it like a more rope-like texture and covered up the wire and the white cord underneath a little bit more. And then I basically just did 10 pieces of cord doubled over into alternating square knots and kind of wrapped the edges around the side wire so that it would be secure. I wanted there to be a bottom on the basket, so I added some more square knots in triangles and then basically pulled those up towards the center. As usual, there were just like so many cords by the time I got to the bottom, so it has quite a thick tassel on the bottom. I considered like shredding this, undoing it like I did on this stuff. I kind of like it just in the regular cord, so I'm probably gonna leave it that way. So overall, from like here down, looks awesome. Here up, I learned some lessons. I kind of actually want to do this again. I don't usually repeat projects, but I'd love to do a brightly colored version of this with like a different color on every single panel. I at least know now what I need to do in order to get the balloon to work from the start. When you turn the light on, it's very picturesque. So I'm glad I finally made this. I'm glad I learned some things from it. Honestly, that's my favorite part of creating projects. I do all these random things. I don't really have any idea what I'm doing. And a lot of times they don't turn out perfectly. Sometimes they turn out really imperfectly. That's how I learn something, and that's how I get better, and that's how I figure out how to make it next time. And I really enjoy that process. Don't be afraid to try something out just because you have no experience and no instructions. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, cool, it's been fun. I'll see you for the next crazy random project.